So I've been producing music now for nearly 5 years, I think, and for the majority of that time I've been producing in the lo-fi chill hop scene and genre, and so I thought it was about time I tried something new. So in this video I'm going to try a genre that I've never really made properly before, and that is the dark ambient genre, a genre that this year particularly has blown up with the likes of Oneheart, Reidenshi, Antent absolutely killing it on social media, with some of their songs going completely viral and gaining millions and millions of streams. It's a genre that I feel is closely tied to lo-fi in terms of the reasons why people listen to it and attracting the same sort of audience. I thought I could use what I've learned from my years of producing lo-fi to try and produce a dark ambient style track. So I'm going to jump into this project and we'll break down what I made. So yeah, this is my first time ever really producing a dark ambient track, and I'm pretty happy with it, but there was a bit of a learning curve in terms of the different scales, the different types of chord progressions, and the different types of melodies and background ambiences that you use in a dark ambient track compared to what I'm used to in my lo-fi tracks. And we'll start there with the piano. And in very much the same way as lo-fi, or at least the lo-fi that I make, the piano is the core of your track. So I'm just starting off with this really simple 8-bar piano chord progression, and these are just really simple triad chords played in sort of a slow arp. And as you can see, I'm just using 2 chords here. We've got a G sharp here that is suspended to make a G sharp suspended 4 chord, and then an E, and then some sort of an E chord here. If you know what this is, let me know in those comments. And as the song progresses, the chord progression changes every 8 bars. So when we get to the next 8 bars, I've expanded upon those chords ever so slightly, bringing in those higher notes. And I just think that sounds so lovely. And then finally, we've got this more complex pattern using exactly the same chords. I just chopped some of the notes so we get a bit more interest and it's not staying too stale. And in terms of processing on my piano, all I've got here is a Valhalla Supermassive. It's using the default preset, tweaked it a little bit just so we get that nice kind of delay and a little bit of reverb. And of course, we're using the original's cinematic soft piano. But what I've done differently here compared to my lo-fi stuff is I've upped the hammer and the pedal noise, and I've reduced the tightness a little bit. I want it to sound kind of dark and kind of gritty, so you can hear those hammers and those pedals each time it plays. To build upon that, I then added this ghost piano layer. There's an automation on here, which I'll get to in a minute. This is playing exactly the same chords, completely quantized, playing 100% pad. So it's kind of just a pad sound that sits in the background of that piano. Yeah, just adding that like swelling ambience. So processing on this is a little different to the piano. We've got an EQ rolling off anything that was too high. Again, we've got a Valhalla Supermassive. This time we've got a 100% mix. And I think I was using one of these SFX sounds, possibly this Barnard 33. I can't remember and I don't want to change it now. And then I've got an ozone imager, adding a ton of width and a ton of stereo to that sound. So the two together sound like this. And you can tell already it's sounding a little bit different to how it's sounding in that pattern. And here's why. I've got an automation on that EQ. And what it's doing is it's opening and closing. So as it's playing, we're letting in more and less of the higher frequencies, dulling down the pad and then opening it back up just to give it a ton of movement, ton of atmosphere to that sound. So just watch as it plays. And all my automations here I did by hand and clicked in just where I thought it could do with a little bit more, or just to keep it moving, keep it kind of swelling in the background there. From there, I wanted to keep building some of that ambience. So I started adding in a couple of different drone layers. We've got this drone note that I've got here, and this is playing one note, G sharp. That's the root note of the entire song. And it's just playing that continuously. And we're playing that on the soft piano from Labs. I turned all of the reverb and all of the dynamics off essentially for the actual VST. And then I've routed that to the mixer channel here and processed it so that instead of sounding like this, it actually sounds like this. Which is so much more interesting than just that basic piano sound. I did that with an EQ, focusing completely on those high notes. We've got a Solaris here, adding a ton of reverb, about an 85% wet to dry mix, so there's barely any of that dry signal coming through at all. We then have a fruity delay. This is on a ping pong preset, so it's bouncing left to right. I then have Pancake 2, again just reinforcing the width and the movement of that sound so that it really moves. And then finally, another EQ and just raising some of that mid to low frequency to give it a little bit more body in that sound. And then I've got here another drone, and this one's using my normal drone, which is the Labs Azure piano. I've left that on pretty much the default settings, and then I've processed that with a Valhalla Supermassive. Again, 100% mix, 100% massive reverb. What we're trying to do here is just build this huge soundscape that kind of envelops the listener. And that's a really kind of core fundamental feature of these dark ambient tracks. And that's where it becomes a little bit different to kind of your upbeat, your boom bap lo-fi, your chill hop tracks. But it is kind of similar to some of the stuff you might hear in a sleepy lo-fi track. Newer, really sleepy stuff that you're hearing on Lo-Fi Girl or the Sleep Tales lo-fi labels. There is some similarities with lo-fi here. So let's just listen to how those drones sound when they come in. And you can hear there how we're really kind of sweeping and amassing the listener with tons and tons of different weird little ambiences and drones. And we're not done. There's more to be added. Another really fundamental part of any dark ambient track is the low, subby, really grumbly bass. So here I've got an Opia sub bass, another Labs, another free plugin from Spitfire Audio. So I'm using a lot of free stuff in this track. So you can make these with completely free plugins. The piano plugin that I used at the start is not a free plugin, but everything else so far has been. So I'm using a sub bass here and just following the root notes of the chords. Really simple. That is it. There is nothing more to it than that. I've got an EQ just boosting a little bit of those low subby frequencies. And now you can see this isn't an overly complex track. There is only 4 more different elements that I added. And remember I said that there was more ambience to add. Let's get to that now. Here I've got a vocals track, and this is using a Contact plugin called Fever Dreams. And this is honestly one of my new favorite plugins when it comes to adding ethereal vocal ambiences in the background of tracks. Now I've loaded up this Rain Ritual preset. Ton of reverb, so on a 90% mix on a really huge sounding reverb, and then I've got an EQ on it, just kind of taming some of these frequencies, ducking out some of that higher stuff, and then I've got an automation to make it kind of move and swell as the rest of the track goes on. So this is how that vocal is sounding in this kind of like main section here. and you'll see that it's one continuous pattern through the whole of the track. So it's never playing the same thing. It's not on like a 4-bar or an 8-bar loop or anything like that. And then finally we get into the dark ambient melody that I've added, and there's a few different things that I added here. So we've got here a pluck melody, and this is a vital sound, just using a basic sine wave with a quick attack, a long decay, a long release, and then a bit of filtering, some white noise. I've also got a bit of distortion, a bit of reverb on here, and that just kind of creates this really lovely, almost classic dark ambient pluck sound. I used the same pluck to double up on my chords here, so it's playing exactly the same as the original triad, just in the background, adding a bit of that classic dark ambient sound. On the chords here, I've got an automation, just bringing them in relatively slowly, just so they're not immediately jumping into the track. And then the final part of this track is this piano art that I added. And again, I kind of gradually introduced this by sticking it in for 2 bars, then having a break, and then bringing it in again here. And this is just playing a really simple piano art on the cinematic soft piano. And I'm sure you can hear there, panning left to right, playing with those velocities a little bit. So when that comes in here, you start to get the full picture of the track. And that's pretty much it, and I'm super happy with how this has come out, but it still does feel like maybe it's missing something. Is there something that a lot of these dark ambient producers are doing and using in their tracks that perhaps I've missed? I don't know, let me know in the comments if you can tell what it is. I feel like I'm pretty happy with how this has come out for like my first real go at making an ambient track like this. Also, just let me know what you think about this track. Do you think I should make more of this style, or do you think I should stick to what I know and go back to lo-fi? See you in the next one.